and it's gonna be okay. So a lot of times people believe in certain things, and they have to understand that people, it's like in a vacuum there's so much chance for things attaching onto you because of the things and the and the stuff that you kind of put out there sometimes. And it's like this, okay? Something can't jump at you if you don't go there. Okay? Like if you don't go to the Amazon, no animal ever plans or tries to defend against you. So basically putting yourself out there sometimes can get you bit by a snake in the Amazon, or different kind of things. Like never putting yourself out there will never get you a girlfriend, but understanding that people are kind of sometimes messed up and they don't know it, and other people who do know that they're messed up, or that they think that they're messed up. It's like this. It's like, say a person starts arguing with you, and what they immediately go to sometimes is the thing that they've usually said for every single relationship. Like, it's usually the tone of voice that they've had with other people. And I think that the kind of stuff that people don't understand about those certain things is that people can sense it. People can kind of get the gist of what other people are talking about by just being around someone and saying, "Wow, that person's kind of messed up." But understanding the kind of messed upness that everyone actually is, or every person individually actually has a variation on. I think the most you need to talk about, the most you need to be a part of, the most you need to understand, the most you need to realize is that there are people out there that really do care. And like I say, if you don't have time with someone, you can always have time with someone else. And it doesn't always have to be someone that's gonna try to be with you, or be around you or something. I think a lot of times I've noticed that the tone of voice kind of gets misconstrued sometimes when a person is just being serious, or their resting face, I guess. Because everyone talks about resting bitch face. It's just, I think it's the lack of emotion that people actually have within themselves. And the realization of the fact is that if they had that emotion, they wouldn't realize is that they evolved to be able to not have that emotion, because they could literally hurt themselves. The most times that I believed in something completely different, I think was when I was a young kid. I didn't understand a lot of different stuff. I didn't realize that there were people out there that really could suggest things that kind of affected certain things. And we're gonna see if we can go kill some people. All right. When I went through a relationship when I was younger, I immediately wanted to date. I saw how cool it was, how awesome you could actually be to another person, and I wanted it. I wanted that so badly. I wanted to date women. I didn't care. I didn't care enough to be able to, and I gotta turn this down. I didn't care enough to be able to be around myself and realize what I was actually insinuating is that I had a lot of money. And that's kind of, I think, the reasons why a lot of people thought that I was, like, not overzealous, but I guess a little bit more mature for my age. And I think that tied with the fact that I like to study things a lot made people think that I was just a know-it-all. And that's what I wanted to know information for, so I could get into girls' pants. But understandably so, that's probably a different person that they were thinking of. Most likely a different person. Definitely a different person. I think what more I think I tried to do when I was a young kid is realize my true potential, I think. And that's where I was actually going with this, because I don't actually just learn stuff to get to know people. I don't tell this shit to people who are around me. So I like to joke around and have fun sometimes, but I'm a pretty smart guy, and I don't like to flaunt it, because I don't think that every person deserves to hear me talk about myself like I'm a freaking god or something, or just a dumbass who thinks that they're a god. I see myself as a person who realizes that the more I push myself away, the more I push myself into where I am, the more I realize that none of that stuff means anything, because there are certain things that people don't accept yet. There are certain things that aren't ready yet, and in some cases, if they're not ready, then sometimes people don't make money. They don't see power. They don't see anything in their life yet, because I think that's what a lot of people wait for, is because they're smart, but they're holding on to that wisdom so much that sometimes it actually starts to make their life better the more money they make, I guess, because they're so well educated. Like, a lot of people in the Middle East are extremely well educated because they have to be well educated to stay in that sort of certain temperate climate, and it's very temperate. So but understanding a lot of different things, there are a lot of people out there that if they would have just moved to a different area, I think they wouldn't have gone through the certain things that they went through. But also too, there becomes a choice whenever you're actually doing something, whenever people are like, hey, can you watch this for me and I'll pay you a hefty prize. You don't know where the prize comes from. The person could be like grave digging or grave robbing or doing something terrible, or saying they don't matter, and then they're just saying that they're gonna watch it forever. And that's, I think, inside of someone else's thing, is they don't realize that animals can sense the vibration of someone's not innermost thoughts, I guess, but what they want the most. It's like they can see from body language and your demeanor, basically, is how you've been treated, how they must act to be able to make you feel better about yourself. And for that, they usually want a treat, or a mate, or a treat, or a mate, or a treat, or a mate, and that's pretty much it. Or water. Either way. Any which way. You have to understand is that they want to be able to give themselves goals. And a lot of times what people don't realize is, if you're a depressed person, even if you have a cat that sits around your house all day, eventually that cat's going to want to kill you for not giving it treats and water and goals, basically. Because I think what happens is, when an animal becomes so smart, it realizes it has more to go on the evolutionary chain because of what it sees around it. And also that same, I think, kind of development happens within humans and relationships, because the animalistic impulse to be able to want to either mate or coexist with someone, it kind of is our natural, like, it's our natural want to be able to feel company, or feel wanted by someone, or feel not even wanted but appreciated, I guess. So a lot of times what people do is they think about a bunch of different things, and they try to come up with certain specific ideas for the way that they feel about someone, or the way that they feel about anything. And I have to find out where these people are so I can kill them. Alright, we're gonna go to the map. Cool. Found a dude. Is that a dude? What is that, a dude? No, that's a river or a lake. Yeah. Found one. No, he's still in the house. God damn it. I've also found out that whenever I was actually dealing with a situation, I noticed that whenever people decided that it was something, or it was something and not the thing that I was thinking of, they usually went their own direction. But understandably so. That's the reason why I think people like to feel smart sometimes, is because they think they know everything, and when there's actually someone who knows something, and they think that they know it too, they just learned it somewhere else. They have to understand is if it takes a long time to be able to come up with that knowledge. It takes a pretty long time to be able to decipher that knowledgeability and being able to come up with wisdom from exactly nothing. Like, it's really hard to be able to do that. It's like you have to be able to sense vibrations. Vibrations themselves are a choice of thought, and I think it's what people don't understand is they can sense it through sounds, and it makes, I guess, that's what people would actually call telepathic. I think is something that a person said, or because emotion basically has another motion attached to it. So it's like it's really hard to be able to say that someone is actually telepathic, but and I'm gonna kill this dude. Yeah. But also
Listen.
All right, I'm gonna make that guy shut up and then go. All right, I'm gonna go. A lot of times though, whenever you're actually hearing a sound that's called infrasound, what it can do is actually make you think a certain way. So you're not actually being telepathic, because even if it were true, if it were true, because it takes, if it were true, it would take so much self-control to be able to stop a bullet with your mind. Like not like with your body, but with your mind. Like literally, you'd be able to do like Neo, and then for like 1 trillion years be able to freaking stop bullets immediately with like a snap of a finger. Like something that's moving completely and utterly fast. But also notice that if you were to take kinetic energy behind a bullet, you would have to move just as fast to be able to reverse the reaction itself within the entire reaction of the gunpowder and the bullet. And if not, sometimes if you stayed too close to a gun, that would actually happen. Like, you would be able to understand that there'd be so much interaction with physics that you wouldn't even be able to think of things appropriately to be able to understand the actual thing that's happening. So yeah, like, there are a lot of times where people get flashbacks of it. Like flashbacks of different thoughts that are in their mind and doing different thoughts and saying different things. They think that they're the way they are for a reason. Or they think that they're a certain way because of the way that someone did something around them. Or they think that they got a certain ability, but what they usually have to understand is a certain vibration went through them. That certain vibration calmed their storm, or whatever that thing was, inside of their body. The reflexes that they have are all based upon something that they went to or had to, what's the word? The basic reaction of understanding science means, I think, is that the kinetic energy within a chemical, because it does hold within it a kinetic energy. Hence the reason for chemical reactions, dyes changing colors, a lot of different things happening. That's what they have to understand, is that it holds within it a kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy can never be harnessed, because it lives within, I'd say the Earth. I'd like to say the Earth, but I know that to be not true. I think it actually is like the way that a fire sparks, okay? The only way that a fire can spark is if fire itself is all around us in a kinetic form, okay? Understanding that a fire was set in a certain area They have to understand that the people didn't discover fire. It's actually our Earth rotated around the sun so many times that it actually started to become in itself flammable, or elements that were affected by the sun, and that's basically where people get all their oil from and a bunch of different stuff like that. It's the reason why, though, a lot of times the metal inside of a well that we have in America, or like at the Gulf Coast or whatever, or something like that, or like that's one that's owned by a certain company that's basically being run by the government to be able to distribute oil everywhere, or not oil everywhere, but to be able to distribute gas to different companies by synthetically synthesizing it and all the other different stuff. They'll have to understand that that a lot of times it's almost like a thought, like a speech pattern or anything like that. Being able to understand that as you realize certain things, people have to understand that your whatever your voice box is or your thing it is. And I'm gonna go kill this guy first before I. Here we go. He was just looking for a ride. We'll just... Alright. A lot of time people don't get the certain versions of thought, or they don't understand the certain versions of thought. Is the more minerals that is affected around you, you are basically like a sponge all the time sometimes. You have to understand that. People have to really understand that they're like a sponge. You start to mimic certain things and do different things because of either generational breeding or because of a certain mineral being deposited inside of your system at a certain time. Awesome. Most of the reasons why I like to believe in something that's very true, most of the reasons why I like to believe in something that's completely not false, what people hardly ever understand about me is I'm smarter than them. I am. I truly am. I may not be extremely fast. I'm pretty fast, though. I may not be unbelievably strong, but I'm extremely versatile in being able to understand the variations of different reflexes and different things like that as well. And I have studied Kung Fu. Not exactly all the stances, but my dad showed me most of them. And then he thought that he got beat up or something like that, so he just felt as though he didn't have any chance at life sometimes because he was doing so wrong. But he didn't understand that there are different styles to be able to understand, and different variations of those styles. There's like he tried to teach me one of the, he thought I wouldn't know that it was lethal. Understandably so. It's a palm. Obviously, it's one of the most lethal usages of your hand that you can possibly even use. It's your palm. Like, seriously, realize that you can rattle someone's brain just from a slap sometimes. If you're strong enough, and if the conditions are right, you can literally knock someone out with a slap. And it's happened before immediately. People don't understand that. But a lot of times too is when they don't understand that the situation in their life is becoming a the situation in their life is becoming too hard to handle sometimes. So when people actually start to understand certain things about themselves, what they don't understand is other people know them already. They knew them and tried to tell them, and their parents usually tried to tell them. And if they didn't listen, it's their own fault. So, there's that.
Hey, it's Ron Jakowski from Sandy Shores. Look, I've got an opportunity. Don't hang up. Seriously. No, this is
there are a lot of times where people don't understand like a revised version of a certain situation.
Don't.
And I think that what people don't understand is people make their own versions of different things all the time. And I think revised versions of things is, I guess people who didn't want to know in the first place don't know. And people who don't realize that they're slowly being eaten alive by something, what they're not going to understand, and what they're really going to start realizing, is that there are certain situations that they believe is something, but that doesn't mean it is. And the most I've ever heard from anyone else actually trying to pull together or pull apart a certain situation is that they'll start to realize that that through certain situations they didn't understand that that it was lost already. And because of their certain what's the word, because of their certain situations that they've been in, certain situations that they've decided to become a part of, or decided to be able to mean, I guess, or certain climactic situations that became part of their lives, they decided to make something else, or try something else. And that's true, it's awesome, it's valid completely. But though it may have something to do with their life now, the original decision that they made was still a thought that's actually running through their head. And to be able to get rid of those thoughts, or be able to understand clarity and understatement, is the fact of being able to understand what thought is propelling that basic emotion. To realize that not only do you need to fix yourself, but you need to reevaluate the thoughts in which you're able to use to be able to fix that situation. You cover up things. People cover up things constantly. Understandably so, they're all memories. And they don't realize that they think that something is available. They think that something is completely and utterly there in their minds. They're just envisioning it, and they don't understand that it's not. It's never there. Even if it tries to be, it's still never there. Most of the times when I believed in a certain situation, when I believed in a certain thing, when I believed in something, some sort of motion, I guess, people never understood that there were giants here. That people did not know how tall they were. But understandably so, we, by being connected to this same earth that they were pretty much on, whether they were a creature or something else, we get it connected to a certain vibration. And then we attach ourselves to it and don't realize what it is. There are certain people that can identify those certain vibrations and understand that it's not human. Granted, it existed a long time ago, and it's the vibration itself of sometimes radiation. But understandably so, people have to understand too that the earth itself filters out all of those things. Because a long time ago, gas and oil and all those other different things used to be irradiated as well. A lot more irradiated than they are now. Has anybody ever heard of a ghost flame? I think that if you realize that the ghost flame means that something is radiation. If you see, like, not like carbonation or anything like that, not any of that stuff, but the ghost flame, like literally something that looks like it's burning when it's not actually burning. That in itself is called radiation. When you mess around with certain things like that, you need gloves and equipment and a whole bunch of different other stuff. Because if you compress it at any moment, it could literally go unstable and completely destroy anything that is in like a 5-mile radius. And you can have like a tablespoonful. That's what happened in Chernobyl. So, that's what happened in Chernobyl because they had more than just a tablespoonful. So, understand that if you see something that's irradiated, don't get on the ground, don't move a lot. Realize that slow, calm movements always are able to do something about that. If you ever are able to understand any sort of thing, calm, slow movements. Not just on camera, not just in any way. Realize slow, calm movements because it's actually living. It's alive. Radiation means that it's alive. It's literally an ionic bond breaking and reattaching itself completely and utterly. It's the reason why it affects human life. They didn't want to say it, but it doesn't really matter if it's alive or not, or if they say it's alive or not, because it is. So, realizing that is kind of like what basically made us in a certain way, but also in the same sense slowly degrades us because it believes us to be older than dirt, basically. Because it's the remnants of a creature, probably. A creature that existed a very long time ago. And, hence the reason why I like the game Nightmare Creatures, because it was the easiest possibility that could have ever actually been. Because yeah, that's probably what it was. So they had to realize that not only did creatures basically inhabit forms, but because of their irradiated abilities, they were able to manipulate elements and basically form any sort of metal into the strongest thing you've ever seen. Basically, the reason why gold is the way it is because it used to be irradiated, and when it was irradiated, it was one of the strongest materials ever. But they wanted it soft, so that's what they got. And that's all we have to go on in there. But without ever realizing a certain situation, I think what people need to understand is that manipulating certain ionic bonds inside of metals actually can make solid objects move. The realization of the fact that I think what people don't understand is that it's not the possession of a demon or anything like that. They just tried to take irradiated pieces and then put them in people and then hate them forever. It's stupid. Those people were probably bad in the first place, but they didn't deserve to be completely and utterly torn apart and put back together throughout their entire existence. Understandably so. Not a lot of people actually deserve that. They usually save that one for the for like the Darth Vaders and the what else? The Vladimir. No, wait a second. Vladimir. What's his name? Vlad the Impaler. That's what they usually put that one for. Because they weren't actually completely evil. They just used tactics that basically would take the witness of a situation and then he'd try to impale them on a spike. Then he would run electricity through that spike, making sure that if anyone ever saw them, they'd still be walking around. Like, basically, that's what he would do. He would basically torture his food because he would kill people, and then he would teach you tricks. It's the reason why you would see people walking around inside of like not really see people walking around, but it's the reason why the messengers of different countries and stuff like that would see people walking around all the time, and then as soon as they went there, the people would run away and hide. Because technically they were alive again, but technically they weren't, because he would kind of, what's the word, threaten different people in his own town to be able to say, like, to be able to say like, oh, this man is an outsider. He is not to be trusted, sort of thing. To be able to keep things on the hush hush whenever he was talking to one of his cohorts or contacts. And then what he would do is he would slowly kill off and then eat the people in the town if they didn't make babies. If they didn't make babies at all, he would slowly but surely tear them to pieces and then eat their blood or drink their urine or something like that because he believed it gave them powers. He was very deformed after a while. And he actually committed suicide. That was the untold story, basically, of Dracula Untold. That was him committing suicide. And then a bunch of animals were trying to eat him because they hated him because he tortured them. And no, it never caused or got any powers ever because that was all CGI. Ever. Usually emotional people don't get powers a lot because of the fact that they don't center themselves. Okay? Realize that. Like any villain that ever decides to threaten or try to ruin people or something like that, they don't have powers. The people who center themselves do. That doesn't mean they're good people. That's the reason why I had to center myself and realize that the MCU was kind of fucked up. Like, all they were looking for ever doing was actually another fight, basically. They weren't trying to stop the person or trying to come up with a plan or anything. They never were. Never were. So basically, if the MCU or the DC universe would ever existed, they would realize that they are the worst cops, basically imaginable. Ever. Like, just completely and utterly stupid. Always doing stupid shit. Always doing dumb stuff. Constantly coming up with funny jokes about crimes that don't matter. They would literally be the worst cops ever. They would constantly make jokes about violence. They would want to be able to fight and then be able to make people completely and utterly silent about things. Including rape. And then completely and utterly destroy someone's life that didn't really do anything wrong until they got there. So, alright. But most of the time, I think what people need to understand is, because of certain situations, a lot of times people have different futures and different, like, things and stuff like that. People have to understand is that, what people have to understand is, you can change someone's future very, very quickly. And very, very suddenly. Understandably so, you can't really change their future that much. Because a lot of times, what they really don't understand about a certain situation is that they never had it. I burped. They never had it. They never had anything. They never had a life. They never had a family. They never had anything. That's the reason why sometimes people only get wrapped up in violence, and that's all. That the more they keep acting like everything is supposed to be the way that they say it is, people start to realize that they really don't care, and they really never needed a life. They just wanted something to be able to inhabit, to be able to understand some sort of clue, to be able to get to the next place. And that's what people look for sometimes, every day. Pretty much. They're just looking on to get to the next place. The amazing race. As in the people who just decided to run into a desert and drink water from that desert. Like a dumbass, not knowing that it's usually mineral water. It's the reason why they're throwing up and farting a bunch of liquids. lot of times, though, people don't understand that their system can't take a certain amount of chemicals. And when they realize that they've overdrank or overdone something, what they don't realize is a lot of times people try to, what's the word? Investigate something. Or try to make it seem like they're, let's see. Like they're innocent. Like, I don't know what I did, but look at this guy. Sort of thing. Like that. That whole thing is like that whole thing that comedians do, constantly putting all their problems on each other. It's the reason why I don't aspire to be one. It's because they just decide to put all their problems on each other. They just decide to randomly suggest something and then try to promote some sort of thing, and then they mess with each other because they're stupid. It's really dumb to do, but they do it, so that's what they do. They always want to come up with some sort of new thing, not realizing that they have to be able to do their research. And most of them do. Most of them really do research, including a lot of new ones. They've researched a bunch of different stuff, and they've done a lot of different kinds of different work. And what they really need to start understanding is, I need to turn this off. Is that eventually the stupid parts of their brain will, and their smart parts of their brain will eventually have a fight. The pieces of themselves that keep switching around are the electrodes basically that are firing in their brain, and whatever you call it, it just means a synapse being able to enact itself. It's not anything that you think it is sometimes. It's just a thing that enacts itself to be able to do something that people can't explain sometimes. And the more they try to explain it, sometimes the less they'll be able to do for you. But understandably so, you have to understand too, is that those people probably aren't the professionals. And if you're actually doing something like brain surgery, you probably should just expect nothing less than the professionals. Most of the time, people don't get it. Is the reason why certain people actually become a part of someone else's life, or the reasons why they have a certain thing to be able to make. They don't realize that that certain parts of their life become fractured, and well, they don't realize that that's basically a personality disorder in a nutshell. It's the trauma of something happening in their life, and the realization of that trauma, and not understanding that they really, really should have just stopped when they were ahead. Because the more that I started to realize something that was stupid, the less I got interested in. But also the realization of the fact is that the more that people want to do sometimes, the more they sometimes lose because of certain reflexes that they haven't tried in a long time. And they call themselves professionals, but sometimes they don't do all the paperwork or realize all the stuff or study every single thing that they possibly can to be able to make the reflexes and or be able to get the things out, to be able to realize that sometimes you just need some sort of a miracle. And also, people don't realize that back in the day, you know, does anybody understand the word miracle? Back in the day, I think people didn't understand this, is that the mirror itself, they believed to be a different dimension. They believed that that person themselves was looking back at them through a different dimension that was inverted. Because of that, a lot of different vibrations got in, people saw things, and then people wanted to be able to create things. But the more you believe it, the more a vibration stays there. The realization of fact most of the time when people don't understand something, when people really don't understand something, they have to make it to where, like say for instance, a woman makes your house cold because she saw on TV that it makes your blood slow down and you don't have heart palpitations as much. You have to understand that when you leave that place of interest, i.e. your house, it gets really hot. So if your heart itself was kind of slowing down its beat because of your certain what's the word, if your heart was slowing down because of certain temperatures, then it speeds up because of certain temperatures as well. It's the things that you teach yourself to be able to do things in your life that are able to give you the reflexes, like able to be someone who is called a doctor, I guess, or a nurse, or anything like that. And the more that people start to realize certain reflexes, the more they're pleasantly surprised. But they shouldn't be pleasantly surprised sometimes. Because a lot of times they have to realize is when they were a young kid, they saw something on TV. Or saw someone doing something out in the field. Not out in a field, but the field, as in doing something that involved being professional. It created a memory or a certain sort of impulse. They didn't want to actually realize a certain memory. They wanted to be able to create that reflex and be able to do the things that person did. Understandably so, sometimes they didn't realize that that person wasn't as professional as they thought they were. They weren't doing things that were professional. They were usually doing things that were stupid and messed up, and they were making jokes about it because they couldn't do anything. That doesn't make them a fucked up person. It just makes them extremely depressed, and they need therapy most of the time to be able to communicate things without actually inverting their tone, to be able to going back to certain things because of fucked up trauma that happened in their lives. And a lot of people don't realize this is because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of times people get made celebrities out of them is because, not a lot of times, but sometimes people get made celebrities made out of them in other countries or even in the US because they went through certain traumatic experiences. Not that they were saved from any dastardly deed or something like that, but like their entire family died of some virus because they. And then sometimes they don't realize that going through those certain situations again, people start to try to worry about them constantly. And through those kinds of different situations, people don't realize that worrying about that certain person can actually put them through more pain than they're actually worth. Not more pain than they're actually worth, but more pain than that can actually take. More sorrow than they can actually understand because they're crying because they feel joy, but it hurts so much. Because that actually does make a reflex. Death in the family can make a horrible, terrible reflex. And it can really affect people around you. But understandably so, a lot of people don't realize this is life goes on. Life constantly moves around us. Constantly does, all the time. No matter how fucked up a person is, or stupid, or dumb, or idiotic, people have to take it as that. And the more vibrations they try to catch inside of a radio or something, because that's basically what it does. It sends in vibrations and it sends out vibrations in a different form. by messing with certain iambic pentameters and beats and percussions and horns and things like that. And also pianos and drums and lots of other different things. But mostly percussion. People don't realize what they do to their ears sometimes whenever they listen to heavy metal music or fucked up things. The reason why I don't listen to heavy metal music very, very often is because that's the reason why because heavy metal dudes don't listen to heavy metal that often. They don't. They really don't. They listen to other different kinds of music. You hear something on the radio, they do something else, and they see a different beat to be able to mimic, and then ask the dude, hey, can we use this part of this beat? And they'll ask, and then they'll make a contract with them. Most of the time. And you have to understand is, a lot of times, oh man, it's so hard to be able to go through absolutely everything with this. Because so many different people actually think about certain things, or think about certain, like, different, certain reflexive, I'd say, reflexive situations, I think. And through those reflexive situations, they start to make basically a stupid reflex. The stupidest reflex of all. Being able to think that something is an extension of yourself, not realizing that eventually you'll start to sleep, and then sleepwalk, and then realize that you're not defeating demons or anything like that. You're punching a wall, or a person, or a dumb thing, or idiotic things, or just nothing at all, or you're just basically not breathing, and you're not going to a different dimension. You're going within your own mind and realizing that your synapses are trying to not be synapses, so you don't invert your eyes into your brain. Not saying that it could ever happen, but understand that it has happened before. But understand too, if you see parts of your brain, doesn't really matter. So realize that. Realize that people really do understand a certain part of themselves. And they have to understand that the more people try to pull in a certain direction, the more they'll realize that their entire body is pulling them in that direction now. They don't realize that they just made the hugest mistake of their life. Trying to affect their own vibration. I mess with it all the time because I know how to be able to reverse it. The only way you're able to do something is to be able to have some sort of notion, to be able to certainly center your body basically on some sort of plane of existence that is your own, I guess. So realize that. Realize, and also if you decide that you're going to try to teleport, that is the worst power to have in a world that's constantly turning. Because the human eye itself is not shaped like a world. It is shaped like a cone. So your eye itself is naturally a deterrent against the curvature of any world or whatever object you're standing on. So if you perform, you wind up about 5 years only actually, and then you develop that you have, if you have a teleport, it basically switches around your eye to teleport. But understandably so, that technology is completely utterly speculative and should only probably be used if it's ever being used, for outer space. Most of the time, people don't realize certain things. They think that, oh, it's going to be a joke, or I'm going to do something hilarious, and that certain people can be affected by certain vibrations. And there's actually been evidence to be able to suggest that people can see things in different rooms. Granted, if that experiment was fake or real or whatever, I'm not really saying that it was ever confirmed, but understandably so. I'm also saying it was probably confirmed. But the more time you spend outside of yourself, you start to realize that it's not you, okay? You're not making those vibrations, okay? Those were things that were, okay? There are certain vibrations of things that existed, okay? Whether they got brought out of existence or got completely and utterly torn apart, the vibration of something is still there. That's the reason why you have to realize that the Earth makes up those vibrations to be able to protect itself from outside harm. Whenever there's a certain thing, if you see an object floating, it's probably because a certain vibration decided to walk in that specific direction at that certain time. If you start to see anything floating, realize that it's that and not anything that's trying to come after you. Because the reason why is because the Earth itself gets confused, alright? Because of that, alright? It gets confused and thinks that it's someone's fault that it's there. So like, say like a piece of trash. You put that piece of trash on the ground. You put that piece of trash on the ground. And granted, I've done this too, so if there's anything happening, it's probably people getting trash thrown in their face. Understandably so, a lot of times people don't realize that that a lot of times it was probably something that it exists in a certain perceivable dimension. So basically, people haven't been perceiving not something that's ever happened, but something that possibly could have happened that people might have thought about in a certain area. So like if you see the mob talking or something like that, it's not like that actually ever happened or you were ever there. But you have to realize that that thing itself was you not realizing that that was probably a part of your own imagination. And that's, I think, the most times where people really don't realize certain things and they start to question their entire existence. And not only that, they don't really question their entire existence, they question whatever certain thing they made whenever they made it inside of their own mind, their hypothesis basically. So you basically have to realize that if you're going to try to meditate somewhere or float in the air or do any of that stupid stuff, because it's stupid to try to come up with an agreement that you won't be standing. That agreement is with magnets, basically. And that's why I was coming up with magnets the last time. This is a rant, so I'm going to do this. Magnets have a lot to do with polarity of different things. When they're electrically charged, they can push and pull different metals or materials around. So that's the reason why you'll see all those dudes that are practicing, trying to calm themselves completely. Because they're not going to be doing it. They're going to be using magnets and polarity of force. Once it becomes a different thing. But also have to understand is that they have to understand is that electrified magnets or highly icy magnets are very, very bad for you. Like dry ice and all that other different stuff. It can literally freeze on contact. And most of the time, I think what people don't understand about stuff is that a lot of people probably died from oh man, what was it? What's the word? Oh man, what is the word? I'd say, what is it? From being ionically charged too much, or being contaminated with dry ice. Because they have to understand is dry ice compounds exponentially. It can stop you from breathing for so long to where if they thaw you out and you're not breathing, they literally won't resuscitate you. It's too hard to be able to get past dry ice. And that's what happens basically in nature sometimes. And the reason why most of the time they won't be able to clone any of those animals. Because it's stupid. It's dumb. It's really dumb. They'll think they'll be able to because they'll see more, what's the word? What's the word? They'll see moisture and bacteria. Understandably so, that's bacteria from about, even though the animal was about millions of years ago, what they're going to do eventually is going to try to make a bacteria that mimics the mammoth. Understandably so, that's going to change the mammoth's DNA, or whatever mammoth comes out of it, and then it's going to be a zombie. Yeah. Zombie is anything cannibalistic or eats itself whenever it doesn't have any food. That's a virus that could have been a really long time ago if people would have realized what they had eaten. I think zombies was because of World War II, but that was never actually confirmed. So, all right. It's been 57 minutes, and I've been talking about a lot of shit. But realize all that stuff doesn't change the fact that you need to realize the reflexes in your mind, and also realize that and understand that the certain situations that are in your grasp or within yourself, you have to realize that people out there just don't get it sometimes, and when they don't get it, you have to start making stuff up because sometimes a virus enacts itself very fast. In certain situations with certain mineral byproducts and something that it's comfortable with, if it's the right temperature or the right time, literally that's how fast it could move. Like completely and utterly Resident Evil 2 immediately just making people freaking like just completely want to bite people's faces. Because they think they're eating food, or they're inside their mind believing something that's different. They have to understand too is that that's probably, if there ever was a Matrix that actually existed, that's probably the only reason why they actually existed. To be able to cure zombies. And people were running around acting like they were police and shit. Didn't matter, dude. It's all freaking code and shit. And that's the part where I think people start to realize that things are real. And I think that they start to realize is that computers are real and programs are real. So I think that they don't understand is I'm practicing to be able to get a certain reflex, to be able to rest and be able to relax my hands. I'm not hurting myself in any way. What they have to understand though is that I had to be able to be a part of my mom. And because of it, I have certain things that I can't drink, like cow's milk. I gotta cut back on the ice cream and the snacks and all that other different stuff because it's basically it fills me up, but it doesn't give me any nutrients that I actually need. And I've been skimping on the protein shakes because my muscles need a rest. Because sometimes I get certain reflexes that are just completely and utterly terrible. So, 59 minutes. You are your own one-man metaphorical personal bomb squad. You can defuse situations that happen. You can defuse situations that are about to happen. But understand if you don't have the right equipment and you don't have the right know-how, then please don't. All right. Have a good day and enjoy yourselves. And don't be all the time so much. So who you are, so then you are. Okay, though. But it's understandable if you don't. But hey, understand this. All right? Have a good day.